All right, I'm going to jump straight into the chart. I'm currently short Tesla and I expect price to move all the way down to test this major strong breakout level just about at $358 or $359 or so. Okay, so why do I think the price is going to reach this level? The reason is because there's virtually no support for the stock until we reach that level. Now, could this stock find support sort of in no man's land and continue going higher? Yes, it's definitely possible, but that is extremely rare. The next support level is not found until this previous high. So at the very minimum, I expect price to test this $370 level before it moves higher. This sort of support zone is actually much more significant than just a prior high which was broken. And in order to see that, I'm going to draw a couple of anchored VWAP levels. I'm going to draw one from the 2025 low, and I'm going to draw another one from this earnings date that happened back in April. And as you can see, when I do that, it creates a sort of support band. And you see that earlier this year, that support band held the price quite well. And I think that when price revisits that support band, it's definitely going to show some support. Now, if you're new to anchored VWAP, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details here in this video, but what anchored VWAP represents is the average price that market participants were willing to pay over time starting from a specific date. And the most powerful anchored VWAP anchors are earnings and major lows and major highs. Another reason why this price level in this sort of anchored VWAP band is extremely powerful is because it's also a volume profile support level. Notice how much price action we had sort of in this clustering zone. Notice how long price was consolidating here, creating a very dense cluster of activity. It's precisely those clusters of activity that create very strong volume profile support levels. So what we actually have is a confluence of prior highs being broken, anchored VWAP support, and also volume profile support. And they all sort of cluster together right around this level. If in not only that, but it's a very even price level of 350. If we can get to 350, it's going to act as extremely strong support. Now, does that mean that price will reach that level and then just take off? Well, we don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but at the bare minimum, I do expect price to bounce from those levels and at least test the volume profile resistance level that was formed in recent trading weeks. And the way I'll be taking advantage of that, if price does indeed reach this very strong support level, is with vertical debit spreads. And I'll talk about that more in future videos. So the last thing I wanted to mention in this video is in the very, very, very short term, I actually think there's quite a good chance that price tests the 9-day EMA. The 9-day EMA is this line I have in white. Okay, so there's a very good chance price will bounce up a little bit, test that level, or perhaps test this volume profile cluster before continuing its move lower. Okay, lower is the path of least resistance. Is it going to necessarily play out exactly like that? I don't have a crystal ball, but I think this is the most likely scenario, and this is how I'm personally positioning myself to take advantage of future price action. And in terms of a stop loss, I don't use physical stop losses because with vertical option spreads, my risk is limited. So I use a dynamic stop loss based on anchored VWAP. Let me show you exactly what I mean. I'm actually going to zoom into the 4-hour chart so we could see it a little bit more clearly. So once again, I'm short and I'm looking to actually add a little bit more to my short position on a small bounce upward. But at what point do I throw in the towel if I'm wrong and this thing just continues to the upside? Well, I'm going to use anchored VWAP. I'm going to simply anchor the VWAP level from the most recent high, and that you can see here in this green line. And as price action develops, you'll see this anchored VWAP line also continue to develop. And I'm going to use this anchored VWAP line as a stop loss level. So if price closes above this anchored VWAP level on a daily candle basis, that's my signal to get out. In fact, if we have a daily candle close above this dynamic anchored VWAP, I will actually consider entering a long position, particularly if it closes above and continues to stay above for the next couple of days and creates a consolidation. So zooming out back to the daily chart, something else I like to look at is the relative strength of the stock. Now, I'm not talking about the RSI indicator. I'm talking about how the stock is performing relative to the overall market. If we want to be long a stock, we want to see that it's outperforming the overall market in the short term. And that's exactly what this indicator down here, the CRS, which is the Auto Comparative Relative Strength Indicator. You can search for it on TradingView. It's absolutely free. This tells you how the stock is performing relative to any benchmark. In this case, I have the Dow Jones. You can use the S&P 500, any major index. And as you can see, since the beginning of October, when Tesla stock had this sort of blow off top, the relative strength of the stock actually went below and stayed below pretty much the entire duration here. And that was telling us the stock is underperforming the market. So in order for me to be interested in any significant position in the stock, I want to see a move above this moving average, and I want to see it stay above that moving average. And that will tell me Tesla is starting to outperform the overall market once again. And if that coincides with a move above this anchored VWAP resistance line, that's going to be an even stronger indication that the stock is ready to continue higher. So keep an eye out for the next video. I'm going to have another update in a couple days. Thanks so much for watching.